In the wake of Hurricane Helene's devastating path through the southeastern United States, an unexpected hero has emerged from beneath our feet. While traditional infrastructure crumbled, a network of fungi, nature's oldest communication system, maintained critical connections that saved dozens of lives. Today, we'll explore how scientists have harnessed the ancient power of mycelium to create the world's first large-scale biological emergency response network, and how this revolutionary approach might forever change how we prepare for and respond to natural disasters. As Hurricane Helene tore through the southeastern United States, it left a trail of destruction that crippled conventional infrastructure. Cell towers toppled, power lines fell, and communities were isolated in their moment of greatest need. But in Asheville, North Carolina, something remarkable was happening. The North Carolina Resilience Initiative had deployed a network that remained operational when everything else failed, a network made of fungi. This pioneering biological technology represents the first large-scale mycelium-based emergency response system ever implemented, and its performance during the crisis has shattered expectations. When 78% of the region's cell towers went dark and over 200,000 residents lost power, this living network maintained 94% operational capacity despite catastrophic flooding, coordinating 317 rescue operations and saving an estimated 42 lives in areas completely cut off from conventional communications. To understand this breakthrough, we need to look beneath the forest floor. Mycelium, the vegetative part of fungi, consists of branching, thread-like structures that form vast underground networks spanning thousands of acres. Scientists have nicknamed these networks nature's internet because they transfer nutrients and chemical signals between plants, creating a communication superhighway that has evolved over 500 million years. These fungal networks don't just passively exist. They actively respond to environmental stressors, rerouting resources and maintaining essential functions even under extreme conditions. This natural resilience mechanism, perfected through countless extinction events, is precisely what makes mycelium ideal for disaster response. Unlike traditional infrastructure, which typically degrades during disasters, mycelium networks can strengthen when challenged. The science behind this phenomenon traces back to groundbreaking research from the early 2020s, when Dr. Andrew Adamatsky at the University of the West of England first documented electrical impulse patterns in fungi that resembled primitive computing operations. These findings were initially dismissed as mere curiosities, but the NCRI team recognized their untapped potential and spent 3 years developing practical applications tailored explicitly for disaster scenarios. The Asheville Mycelium Network represents the culmination of years of research by mycologist Dr. Elaine Che and environmental engineer Tariq Jamal. Their system consists of specially cultivated Pleurotus mycelium strains that can transmit low-frequency electrical signals across distances of up to 3 kilometers without requiring external power sources. The technology works through myceoelectricity, the generation and transmission of electrical impulses through fungal tissue. The network includes 24 mycelium nodes strategically placed throughout the region, each capable of communicating basic emergency communications, location data, and environmental readings. These nodes operate on a principle similar to biological neural networks, with signal strength actually increasing during periods of environmental stress, a counterintuitive advantage over conventional systems that typically fail under identical conditions. When cell towers are down and power grids fail, the mycelium continues functioning, explains Dr. Shea. These organisms have survived for over 500 million years precisely because they're incredibly resilient to environmental stressors. We've repurposed evolutionary adaptations that fungi developed to survive extinction events for modern disaster response. The Asheville implementation initially faced significant skepticism, with local emergency management officials reluctant to rely on what they perceived as experimental technology. This hesitation is understandable. In life or death situations, tried and tested systems typically take precedence over innovation. However, Hurricane Helene provided an unexpected proving ground for the mycelium network. As conventional systems failed one by one, the fungal communication channels remained operational, maintaining 94% capacity despite catastrophic conditions. The network's performance during the crisis has transformed perceptions among emergency response professionals. Where there was once doubt, there is now growing interest in biological approaches to infrastructure resilience. This shift in thinking represents more than just acceptance of a new technology. It signals a fundamental change in disaster response philosophy. moving from purely engineered solutions to bio-integrated systems that harness natural resilience mechanisms. The technical achievements behind the mycelium network represent a convergence of biology, electrical engineering, and information science. The NCRI system incorporates specialized interface devices called mycotransceivers that convert digital information into biochemical signals that mycelium can transmit, and then back into readable data at receiving nodes. This bio-digital conversion technology marks a significant breakthrough in how we interface with biological systems. The implementation involves introducing genetically modified mycelium cultures into the soil, which grow along predetermined paths, creating living data corridors. These corridors are maintained through a novel technique called mycorrhizal conditioning, where the fungi form symbiotic relationships with native plants, ensuring long-term sustainability. The team overcame numerous technical challenges during development, particularly in translating digital information into forms compatible with fungal transmission. The breakthrough came through biomimetic design principles, studying how fungi naturally communicate chemical information and developing synthetic analogs that could carry encoded emergency data. The resulting protocols, termed fungal signal transduction pathways, FSTPs, represent an entirely new paradigm in biological computing. What makes the mycelium network particularly valuable is its self-healing capability. Traditional infrastructure requires human intervention for repairs, but mycelium networks naturally regenerate and reroute communications when damaged. When a section of the network is compromised, the fungi respond by growing new connections around the damaged area, a process that happens automatically without human intervention. This adaptive response mimics how mycelium functions in nature, where it constantly responds to changing soil conditions, predators, and environmental stressors. Moreover, unlike conventional infrastructure which begins degrading from the moment of installation, the mycelium system strengthens over time as the fungi establish more extensive connections. This represents a paradigm shift in infrastructure design, from static systems that resist change to dynamic networks that adapt to it. The self-healing property proved critical during Hurricane Helene, when landslides and flooding damaged portions of the network. While conventional systems remained offline until repair crews could access affected areas, the mycelium roots simply grew alternative pathways, maintaining essential communications throughout the crisis. Beyond its technical advantages, the mycelium network offers compelling economic and environmental benefits. Each node costs approximately $1,200 to install, a fraction of traditional emergency communications infrastructure, and requires minimal maintenance once established. The entire Asheville network was deployed for under $50,000, compared to the millions typically required for conventional systems. This cost-effectiveness makes resilient emergency communications accessible to communities with limited resources, potentially democratizing disaster preparedness. The environmental benefits are equally significant. The biological components of the network sequester approximately 2.7 tons of carbon annually, creating the first emergency response system that actively mitigates climate change while protecting against its effects. As the mycelium grows, it improves soil health, increases water retention, and supports native plant communities, turning emergency infrastructure into an environmental asset rather than a burden. This alignment of disaster resilience with ecological restoration represents a new approach to infrastructure development that recognizes the interconnectedness of human and natural systems. The success in North Carolina has catalyzed interest from disaster management agencies worldwide. Japan's Disaster Prevention Research Institute has already begun implementing similar systems in tsunami-prone coastal regions, while the Philippine Department of Science and Technology is exploring applications for typhoon-affected areas. The technology appears particularly well-suited for regions with limited financial resources but rich fungal biodiversity, potentially democratizing access to resilient emergency infrastructure. These global applications demonstrate how biological approaches can be adapted to diverse environmental conditions and disaster profiles. In Japan, researchers are focusing on integrating mycelium networks with existing tsunami warning systems, creating redundant communication channels that can survive when ocean-based sensors and transmission systems are compromised. In the Philippines, the emphasis is on rapid deployment in the aftermath of typhoons, using fast-growing tropical fungi species that can establish emergency networks within days rather than weeks. These varied implementations highlight the adaptability of the underlying biological principles to different ecological and disaster contexts. The applications of mycelium networks extend beyond emergency communications. With remarkable sensitivity to their surroundings, these fungal systems can detect soil contaminants, groundwater changes, and even seismic activity. Researchers at Zurich are developing mycelium strains that change color when exposed to specific pollutants, creating living environmental sensors that could provide early warnings for slow-onset disasters like groundwater contamination or soil degradation. These capabilities address a critical gap in our monitoring systems, the detection of environmental changes that occur too gradually to trigger conventional alarms but still pose serious long-term threats to community safety and well-being. A mycelium network could, for instance, detect increasing levels of industrial contaminants in groundwater months before they reach dangerous concentrations or identify subtle shifts in soil stability that might precede landslides. This early warning capability transforms disaster management from a reactive to a proactive discipline, potentially preventing catastrophes before they occur. As Tariq Jamal of the NCRI team explains, we're just scratching the surface of what's possible. These organisms process information in fundamentally different ways than our digital systems. They're teaching us new approaches to resilient design that could transform how we build critical infrastructure. The most exciting applications may be ones we haven't conceived yet. The next generation of mycelium networks, currently in development, will integrate with existing digital infrastructure to create hybrid systems that combine the reliability of biological processes with the speed and capacity of electronic communications. These hybrid approaches represent more than just technological advancement. They signal a philosophical shift in how we conceptualize infrastructure resilience. Rather than building ever more robust systems designed to withstand disasters, the biodigital approach creates adaptive networks that respond to changing conditions. These systems may evolve beyond mere communication tools to become foundational components of climate-resilient communities, living infrastructure that adapts to changing conditions just as natural ecosystems have throughout evolutionary history. The NCRI estimates widespread implementation could reduce post-disaster communication restoration times by up to 70% while providing critical services during the most vulnerable periods following catastrophic events. The mycelium networks of North Carolina represent more than just an innovative solution to disaster communications. They embody a fundamental shift in how humanity approaches resilience in an increasingly unstable climate. By turning to nature's oldest and most resilient organisms, scientists have discovered that the best answer to modern challenges may have been beneath our feet all along. These fungal networks, which have survived multiple mass extinctions and thrived for hundreds of millions of years, offer a powerful lesson in adaptation over resistance. As climate change intensifies and disasters become more frequent and severe, the fungi remind us that resilience comes not from building stronger walls against change, but from creating systems that can bend, adapt, and even thrive amid disruption. The success of the North Carolina Resilience Initiative suggests we are at the beginning of a bio-inspired revolution in infrastructure, one that works with nature rather than against it, that sequesters carbon rather than producing it, and that grows stronger rather than degrading over time. In the quiet work of mycelium, we may have found not just a solution to disaster response, but a new model for how human technology and natural systems can evolve together to create truly sustainable resilience. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for updates. Your feedback is appreciated. We hope to see you again.